I've had 18 years experience on the school board, and with all that experience comes a good working knowledge of how the schools work. I have a good knowledge on school finance, and I've been on the negotiating team with for the teachers' contracts for the last three contracts, so I'm experienced in that area as well. So between school finance, curriculum, negotiations, and facilities, I'm familiar with all those areas.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the teaching contract. You know, the last time there was a negotiation, there was a work stoppage. What can we have done to avoid that the next time around? And what's the school board's role in teaching negotiations?
Well, I think there's an interest in going to what's called interest-based negotiations the next time by both the board and the union. I know I've talked to some members of the union, and they're interested in changing our negotiation stance. And instead of having attorneys and official representations on their side by the union, we're thinking of just talking to each other this time without the attorneys present, and to see if we can't, if we go to, this involves taking a training course for interest-based negotiations, and see if we can't come to an agreement without the extra people involved. And as far as what was the last part of that question?
What is a school board member's role in teaching negotiations?
Well, it's a very important role because the board itself is the negotiators for the administration. While with the superintendents present, the board plays a big role in what the board needs from the teacher's contract, and the board makes final decision whether or not to accept the contract when it's done. So the board's role is a big role in that area.
What are your thoughts on the current school buildings in the district, and do you believe the high school should continue to be where it is?
Well, the buildings are all aging. I was on a committee last summer that went through all the buildings in detail, and there's many areas in our older buildings that need repair, and the high school being the worst of those. So I feel that probably if we were going to replace a building, it would be the high school. And ultimately, my view is to buy enough land someplace to build a new high school. And over the years, maybe 20, 30, 40 years, as the older grade schools become obsolete, to move those out onto the high school campus and have all the schools on one place. Of course, that goes many years into the future to have that. But ultimately, it's the community decision, because a new high school would require a referendum, and if the community doesn't agree with that, they'll never pass the referendum for a new high school. So the other part of that could be renovation. If we renovate the old high school, though, we're still sitting on only 13 acres of land, and if the community grows in the distant future, adding on to a building that's already over 100 years old, that doesn't have enough land really to add on to it, presents problems. Also, there's problems that renovating won't solve, and one of them is the parking problem, and the other one is the athletic fields. We have to bus all of our students up to Reagan for soccer and practice fields for football. So there are problems with renovating. The cost of renovating versus building new is about the same. Ultimately, I would hope that we would build a new high school, but again, it's really up to the community to make that decision, not so much for the board.
What can be done to improve communication between the teachers, school officials, and the board?
Oh, being more open and with our communications. We do have a number of committees that board members attend and teachers attend to help that communication problem. I think continuing with that area would be good. Beyond that, I'm not sure what else can be done except committees and open communication between the two groups.
Now, state budgets could mean reduced funding for Dixon schools. If that happens, budget cuts may have to be made. What are some things the school district could possibly cut or maybe do without going forward?
Well, ultimately, the school district is responsible for academic achievement of its students. That's priority one, academics. So that would mean if you have to make cuts, everything that's not related to academics would be cut, and that would be extracurriculars would have to go first. And then cuts would have to start in the academic area. We'd have to increase class sizes